So this is a very good drawing showing you what the Rosetta Stone would have looked like originally. So you see what little we have of it. The top half was mostly the hieroglyphs. And that laser print photo on the right, you can see the actual inscription very clearly.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Oh, here, another picture of it.
Ah, yes. Now, this, of course, the French did their very first lithography, quite literally, writing from stone. They used the stone itself as a printing block. They put ink on the Rosetta Stone and they laid across their paper and produced this negative impression, or a mirror image, rather. They eventually produced positives, which they sent back to France before the British expelled them from Egypt. So France was effectively working on the decipherment about a couple of years before anyone in England had sight of the stone.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Now
Now
we're into the decipherment. So Sir Thomas Young on the left was doing the work for England, and on the right, Sylvestre de Sacy, the great Orientalist linguist. He was the tutor of the much more famous fellow who's up next, who is Jean-François Champollion, of course.
Wow.
There he is. Champollion is credited with the decipherment of hieroglyphs. And it is accurate. There is no question that, oh no, Young did it too at the same time. It's not the case. There was a quantum leap that had to be made. Young could not do it. Champollion, with his background of languages, could, and he did. The irony is that he did not use the Rosetta Stone itself to do it. It led them down the path, but he needed many, many more sets of hieroglyphs in order to make his decipherment. So we'll see this next.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
So this is the home of Kingston Lacy in Dorset in England. And this on the lawn is the Philae obelisk. Now, the Philae obelisk, if anything, is the thing that cracked hieroglyphs. It had inscribed on it the names of two pharaohs, not only in hieroglyphs, but also in Greek. So they knew where they were. And if you see the next one, you'll see them written out.
How far is it from London?
It's a couple of hours. Yeah, it's a couple of hours.
Okay.
It's a National Trust property, so it's open to the public. Here we are. These two inscriptions, as you see, Ptolemy and Cleopatra. So what told the linguists here was that both of these names are not only sharing letters in Greek, they're sharing hieroglyphs, which means that hieroglyphs can also be letters as well as anything else. But nobody had made that connection yet. And they had no idea which letters they would correspond to. But here we've got P, T, O, R, etc. So this was vital.
Yes, unbelievable.
Now,
What do we
this is
see
an
here?
example. This is an example of a cartouche. Now, many of us have heard this word cartouche. It's coined, oddly enough, from the French army. It means cartridge. And that's because if you look at the shape of it, it looks just like a cartridge for a Charleville musket.
It
And
does.
that's where we get the word from. So if you look at the two at the left, the top one, you read these hieroglyphs like Arabic from right to left. So the little glyph, letter glyph, phonetic glyphs there, they say Ptolemes Ankh Jet Ptah Mer. What this means in English is the ever-living, Ankh, it meant ever-living, the ever-living Ptolemy, beloved of Ptah. Ptah is the god in whom Egypt exists. It is the land of Egypt is the house of Ptah. In fact, the name Egypt itself means house of Ptah. There's been some difficulty in this, and it's not clear, no one's clarified, but Mycenaean Greek used to refer to ekopticho, and If you look at Greek, you look at the gamma. If you pronounce that like a kappa, you suddenly have ekopt. The Y is a U sound in Greek. You now have the word Coptic. You have ekopt, ekopteko, the home of Ptah. And that's what the word Egypt means. So I believe Professor Hawass has tried to examine this as well. But this is why it was important for the pharaoh to be connected to Ptah himself. So most pharaohs have beloved of Ptah or child of Ptah in some way about them. Next one. So here you see the 14 lines of hieroglyphs. But if you look at the bottom right corner, just above that gap of the second band of Demotic writing, you'll see a tiny little glyph that looks like a tombstone.
Yes.
That is the last line in the decree that says, "This decree shall be inscribed upon a stone in the 3 languages." So that is the glyph for the Rosetta Stone itself.
Yes,
That is a
right.
hieroglyph for a stele,
God,
because that's what they looked like. It's quite simple and breathtaking, really.
really, it is fascinating.
So this is the eureka moment, really. Champollion had seen the phonetics now from the Philae obelisk. He'd built up a tentative library, but now he received these 2 other bundles of hieroglyphs from a colleague on the Nile, Rio, and saw before him the one above and the one below. He took the circle to mean the sun, because in Neoplatonism, in alchemy, it represents the sun, the oneness. That's why there is a dot in the middle. It's a dot in the middle of the void. So it is everything, hence the sun. And he says in Coptic, this is Re.
Yes.
His other alphabet had worked out the 2 bishop's crooks at the end, the shepherd's crooks rather, as the S sound. And he
Yes.
looked at this and said, Re, S, Ra, S. Ra was god of the sun. Re, the Coptic, must come from that Egyptian. Is this the cartouche for Ramesses?
Ramses.
Then he saw the bottom one.
Yes.
That first glyph is the ibis-headed god.
Mhm.
That is Thoth. Many people who have a passing knowledge of Egyptology or ancient Egypt might not recognize the name Thoth particularly, but they would recognize the name Tut, Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun is an Egyptian way of saying the Greek Thoth, or Tot, as it would have been pronounced. This then is Thothmes, the other most famous pharaoh that he could possibly have found. So what he had done is he'd proven that not only could hieroglyphs be phonetic, each for a letter, they are also for a concept or a name or a word with a single glyph, Thoth.
That's
He
right.
apparently leapt up from his desk, ran next door to his brother's office at the Academy of Belles Lettres, and shouted, "Je tiens l'affaire! By George, I've got it!" and fainted. He was in a coma for 5 days. He was so exhausted. And
Yes.
this is his paper where he explains his Egyptian alphabet. And that's what cracked hieroglyphs. All thanks to the Rosetta Stone.
Fascinating, really.
So the frontispiece on the left you have is the plate to the great book, the Description de l'Égypte, that the Institute created. It was so big they had to build a new printing press to accommodate it. Its pages are roughly a meter high. It is an enormous book. In fact, the Institute lost its copy during the fire in 2011, but it was restored to Egypt by by France. I believe they had several copies. So that is their great book, their great doomsday book record of everything they discovered in
How
Egypt.
many pages approximately?
Oh, it's massive, Manusha.
Massive.
I've seen a small softback at sort of 5 by 8 size, it's about 3 or 4 inches thick. So you can imagine how big the big version will be. It's it's gigantic.
Unbelievable. Fascinating.
Now here is the British Museum. This is to do with the repatriation. So these slides are from a previous lecture where I talk about the repatriation of artifacts and so forth. And this is just an example of how the Rosetta Stone has been turned into a kind of tourist gimmick, if you like. This is the British Museum shop from the time. You can get the Rosetta Stone on cups, t-shirts. I saw them on ties when I was there in October last year. So it's everywhere. Um,
Oh my
so
God, how many times I was there and I missed this.
you can imagine it's a bit galling if you're in Egypt and you want your artifacts back. You find that it's not a misuse, but is it not just vulgarizing something that's actually
It
very
is.
precious and
Why
important?
would you like to wear such a thing, for example, to begin with? I mean, yeah, it's crazy,
Yeah,
actually.
it's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the British Museum even tried to copyright uh, the face of it, and they said, "Well, no, you didn't make it, so no, you can't own its copyright." This is interesting. This is a secret. If you visit the British Museum, you cannot actually get at the stone like you used to. It used to be on the front step, but it was exposed to the elements and it got very dirty at the time. So it's since been cleaned. It was cleaned at the millennium. It's in a glass case, standing upright. But very, very few people know that in the King's Library, just around the right of the Great Court, when you come into the British Museum, if you go right instead of left towards the stone, go right. Into the library, you find a replica. You can get right up close to the replica. You can touch it, feel the incision of the carving, the inscription, and it is as close as you're going to get to the original. It's a very, very good version. And you can get that feeling of what it must have been like.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And here's a wonderful painting, Bonaparte conversing with the Sphinx. It's actually one of Napoleon's younger brother, Jerome. So about 17 years old, I believe, or 19 here, I'm not sure. Uh, Seeing the Sphinx in 1798. And we could ask ourselves, have we lost a little of the magic of this particular Giza plateau by having excavated and learned more from it? It's hard to tell, but there we are. That's the story of the Rosetta Stone, effectively, and the secret history of the Rosetta Stone as well.
Thank you very much. It was really, really magnificent what you explained, and I'm
My
sure
pleasure,
this,
my pleasure.
detailed description what you have given me,
I, I'm,
provided
I'm,
you.
I'm sorry I went into such detail. It is so much in my mind all the time.
No,
I'm
beautiful.
so
Our
familiar with
viewers
it.
love that. On this channel, they love history. They love details. It's not just they just want to. The viewers of the
Okay,
channels, no matter where they come from, they're international. They love history. They don't like these shallow talks. They love these type of things. So thank you very much. It was
okay.
lovely. Let's, just before we move on to the
Sure.
second book of yours, you see that
Yes.
on every page we have the jacket of Jonathan's
Oh,
book there,
yes, that's right.
and you can order it. I'm going to put the link here to Amazon, and also each book we are going to provide with a separate link. Let's go to the second book of
Sure. This
Jonathan.
is, yeah,
Yes.
this was a much less involved piece of research. It's actually a very user-friendly guide, if you like, to the Industrial Revolution. It's a social, cultural history from everything from the invention of the spinning jenny to, well, slavery. Yes, how it affected people in England, what men and women did in the evenings, where they went to relax, or what food they ate, medicine, all these sorts of things that we tend to forget about, that history was actually lived in by ordinary people just like us. So 1,000 years from now, they're going to say, "Good Lord, they were still talking to these funny things they called webcams, rather than teleporting, or whatever. Who knows?" Um, they were lived in by ordinary people. So this is 18th century England at the time. of great change. So, as an example, one of my favorite statistics is that I believe in 1790, there were roughly 1,000 new patents. No, I got that wrong. 1790, there were 100 new patents. By 1799, by 1800, there were 1,000. So you have things like the spinning jenny, for example, which is to ravel cotton to make it usable for spinning, for thread.
Yes.
It could ravel one thread at a time, the very first creation. Within 10 years, that machine was doing 100. Because invention just kept building on invention, on invention, on invention. Uh, in my novels, I refer to an Italian handgun from the late 1790s. It's a flintlock that was a repeater,
Repeater
not a
flint.
pepperbox gun with a turning barrel, but an actual cranking arm with a magazine in its frame full of rounds and then full of powder. It cocked itself, primed itself, and fired. It's extraordinary. So this time was amazing. It does touch on slavery and the idea that it, it's clear that in England, slavery was illegal. It was illegal, but they had no legal framework for
Exactly.
banning people from dealing in it.
Exactly.
So
You
they
need a
had
legal
to put
framework.
up with it. It was a terrible situation, and the courts were in absolute agonies over it. They're trying to stamp it out. And there are famous cases of, say, for example, an enslaved man fleeing a ship and coming inland and being sheltered by people. And then the slave owner actually grabbing him and frog marching him back to the ship. And then the court's trying to get him back. And the court's saying, if you stand on English soil, you are free. There is no question. The fact that he was taken by force back onto a ship that was within English waters means nothing. You will release him. So you have these new measures that he still yet didn't go quite far enough until abolition came in. And then the Royal Navy became an international police force to try to stamp out slave trading and slave dealing. So it's in there. These sorts of things impacted ordinary English people, anybody who took sugar or took cotton were getting it quite likely from plantations in the West Indies. So it's a nationwide, it's a cultural wide phenomenon. And indeed, it's like the clothing trade today. And they talk about sweatshops in the Far East and the subcontinent, all of these sorts of things, which we're trying to stamp out, but it's so very legally difficult to do that.
Very good point. Yes. I mean, we talk about compared today when we talk in economics or business term, we always come back and try to industrial revolution and try to say what were the labor rights? Did they have any labor rights? How many hours could they work? Were they covered? Right? Did they have any days off? These are also things which take today for granted, right?
Yes, absolutely. So back then, for example, Wedgwood, whom we know as the beautiful china bowls and plates, chinaware and pottery.
Yes.
No, he was seen as a cultural, social hero. He created a whole factory, a gleaming factory for unemployed, starving agricultural laborers to come and work in. And then many of these industrialists would house their workforce. They would have corporate doctors on hand. But then, of course, all the abuses of the system crept in. So, for example, a factory clock would actually tick slower than a clock outside the factory.
Oh my God.
Keep the people working longer so they wouldn't know. Child labor, it was appalling, some of it. But it's all part of that we've got a new system, but we have no legislation yet in place to protect everyone from it. It's a lot like the internet was. Absolutely. Look how long it took to get safeguards in the internet.
Yeah.
Even now, they're struggling to do it.
Yes, struggling.
Same thing.
Children are exposed to nasty things, and
Yes.
back
And
then
look
when
at,
we were children, we couldn't get access. Everything was protected, everything was regulated.
yes,
Today, unbelievable what
yes.
children are exposed to.
So you look at the measures of Spain and what they've stepped up to do. These sorts of things, it took time. So rather than saying, "Oh no, these dreadful European nations, look how they abused everyone." Well, who was doing the abusing? Who were the abused? And was it actually any different to anyone else's abuse of abused victims? Nobody wants to be an abuser. Nobody wants to be abused. They just need systems to defend and protect, and they just
You need
hadn't
systems.
created them yet. They couldn't keep up.
You need systems. Absolutely. Absolutely. So beautiful because Industrial Revolution, you wrote about it, is, I mean, I can tell you this, I teach at Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, and there is Industrial Revolution is a big key, and I'm sure many people would be interested to read not from an only, comparing figures and business input output,
Yeah, I
but
think
more
we've,
important, yeah, about people. How
yes,
people are more important. Forget all these
yes,
figures. It's like you teach CSR, corporate social responsibility. I'm not interested what this company says about CSR rating and ranking. I'm more
yeah,
interested what people in that company say. The
yeah.
reality, right? That's
No,
important,
absolutely,
not
absolutely.
some figures.
Yeah. So I
And
see
hence, yeah,
you've also mounted some more beautiful swords here.
yes, yes. These are from, that I go to France quite often. These are from Musée de l'Armée. These are
Ah,
French swords and try to, you know, just do Mameluke swords. The one below, everything is French. Fittings. From the first side, you think, oh, it's Ottoman Kilich saber, right? But
yes.
even the blade is French made. So you see that they try to do everything like Oriental saber. It's
Well, yes,
fascinating.
when we were talking, it was this period of the invasion of Egypt where everything in Europe went Egypt mad. So you get from an interiors point of view, you get the directory style of very grand gilded furniture in French palaces and government offices and so forth, with palm tree motifs and black ebonized pillars and things like this. The same with swords, in that they emulated the Mameluke hilt. So in England, they refer to the Mameluke hilted sword. And it is, as you say, it was a copy of the Mamluk style, or indeed the Turkish style.
Mm,
Everything was Turkish. Everything wanted to be Turkish. There was a big revisit of this in the 20s and 30s. Again, because of Tutankhamun and Howard Carter. Egypt, Turkey, everything. It was all part of the fascination for Northwest European.
So I need to say something to you. When I went to Musée de l'Armée, we wanted to stay with my family like 3 days. And I just had 2 days I need for Army Museum. So I spent 2 complete days. I entered early in the morning, late in the evening, but with all those cameras I had, right? So, but they have like over, like, I think 600,000 artifacts everywhere.
Oh my
And you
goodness.
can, yeah, you cannot just everything. So I decided to make exceptions. Okay, I don't have enough camera. Above all, I don't have enough time because the third day I promised my family to go out and visit the city. So 2 days I had to work. So I worked without having any lunch, without having any coffee, just worked all day. So what I did was this: I need to make it okay. Ancient world, yes. Everything from Persia, China, Ottoman Empire, India, definitely. Japan included, China included. So then I went to medieval Europe included. Then I was running out of time. I came to this era, right? So I have to make a decision. I looked, I don't have time. I'm running out. Only French swords. The reason was because they're so beautiful. Look, I don't want to insult everyone. They had, when they fought the Austrian and the Prussians, right? So their swords are also there. But then I didn't do it because I don't want to offend anyone. Compared to French swords, Austrians, Germans, Prussian swords look so simple. You know what I mean? They look
Oh,
so. You know, they're very functional. Look, I'm not saying not, right? They had English swords, but they didn't look. And then after all, I said, why do French swords are so appealing to me? Yeah, because they try to emulate the Oriental style.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
the reason they're
Yes,
appealing to me, you know?
yes.
So
The
that's the
cur-
whole story. Yeah.
the curve of the saber is absolutely vital for cavalry use.
Yes.
Yes, it's they're absolutely stunning. They're absolutely stunning.
Funny.
But this is the sort of thing I had to really study whilst doing the novels, of course,
Yes.
which I think we're
Which we
coming
will
on to.
go to the first one.
Ah, here we go.
Yes.
Yes, so basically, I was asked by the publisher, so why don't you take Discover at Rosetta, everything you've learned? It's so like a novel. And
Yes.
in fact, some reviewers have said it's hard to remember that Discover at Rosetta is not a novel because the characters are larger than life. The extraordinary things they did and said are larger than life. So for the next 8 years, I did in-depth research to create William John Hazard. Um, Imagine you're in Admiralty intelligence and you hear that there is a huge French fleet massing at Toulon in the Mediterranean. You have no idea where it's going. You know that they want to invade England. So I contrived a story whereby I could create, like I say, faction, where the facts support the fiction here. So I put Hazard into the situation of going and meeting and liaising with Nelson in his pursuit of Bonaparte's fleet to find out where it is, where it's going. And this led me to a series of 6 books. I'm currently writing book 5, but the first 2 should really be read in conjunction. Napoleon's Run, it's the in-depth stuff I had to do to get into Malta. The effect of the French on Hompesch zum Bolheim, who is the Grand Master of the Knights of Malta. What and how the French managed to outwit the knights and effectively kick them down the steps into a rowing boat and send them on their way. It was an extraordinary story. And then book 2, Lords of the Nile.
Let me just go through the next one, book 1.
Sure.
We have, as I
Oh, yes,
mentioned
of
to
course.
Jonathan, we have, a clip, but we cannot have the music. It has a beautiful background music, but just want to play it for viewers to see how
Okay,
beautiful this is.
I can give a bit of commentary.
Yes,
So
please.
here we are. It was the year 1798. It was the biggest fleet since effectively Xerxes' day. And it was hard to believe, but it was kept secret. They managed to keep that huge fleet secret.
Yeah,
So there were English agents all over Europe trying to find out what they could.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
And this is Hazard. If I could define him as anything, he's someone who does not stop, as they didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
So this marvelous cinematique of a ship in storm, if you can imagine this, imagine his fleet of 400, oh, I think we've frozen there, his 400 ships. They covered, if I get this right, 16, no, 4 square miles of sea, of the surface of the ocean, was ships. It was as far as the eye could see. Reviewers were very kind to me about the first book. They absolutely loved it.
fascinating. So he never gave up, right, Hazard, right?
No, absolutely. In fact, the There's a bit of a story here to tell about this. Um,
Yes.
Never give up the boat. This was an expression I learned
Yeah.
in a boat by a friend of mine.